Now, coming back to the question of minorities, you will find why this particular resolution has been so widely put in that it might include a religious minority as well, a linguistic minority as well, or an economic minority, as some honorable members rightly pointed out. Now, sir, a question arises whether there ought to be any such protection in so far as a particular type of minority is concerned. I shall deal with the question of minorities at some length, but you will please find, sir, what the honorable mover wants is that there ought to be a permanent minority commission. It ought to be endowed with statutory powers. Therefore, sir, an attempt is being made for the first time by my honorable friend for driving a wedge between a community and a community. So far as the Constitution is concerned, as my honorable friend rightly pointed out, whenever the question of minorities arises, we have to be extremely careful. The Constitution is a very scared document which has embodied all the different aspects of the common question of India's nationality. India is one in spite of different types of languages and religions. But in the midst of all these diversities, we have to develop a common nationality. Therefore, whenever we consider the question of the development of the nation and the interest of the nation, you cannot afford to think in terms either of religion or of language. It is true that there are different religions. It is also true that there are different languages. Therefore, a question arose and the farmers of the constitution had to devise a constitution in the midst of the unity of India with certain diversities here and there. For that purpose, what they did was they devised a common nationality for the whole of India, and insofar as religious minorities were concerned, they were given certain rights. I would not go into the details regarding the provisions of the fundamental rights regarding the practice of religion. Certain rights have been given to the religious minority, and beyond that, it would not be proper to bring in the religious minorities for political rights, for what we have to be extremely careful. I would also point out that while we have to develop a common nationality, the members of the Indian nation have to understand that we are one nation. Therefore, certain rights in respect of religious minorities were given. They were fundamentally rights, and most of them are justiciable rights. Here we stopped so far as the religious rights were concerned. Then a question arose what ought to be the attitude of not only the government but the society regarding the languages. It was true that there were certain interests of the religion languages. Now these languages required to be developed, but they were not meant for dividing one man from the other. So in 1956, when the states were formed to a certain extent on the basis of language, what was done was not to have a state with cent% people belonging to the regional language, because there were bound to be people belonging to different languages. That was the reason why this question was considered at great length, and the State Reorganization Commission also went into this question of linguistic minorities. It was bound to arise here and there because they were likely to feel that their rights and safeguards given to them might or might not be properly implemented. So, this question was considered first by the State Reorganization Commission, and they dealt with the question whether we should have a permanent minorities commission. They went into it very carefully and shrewdly. They found out that it would not be proper to set up a permanent minorities commission because the result, if not the actual effect, would be that a permanent wedge would driven between one community and another community. So far as language minorities were concerned, they had a right so far as their own languages were concerned. They had also an obligation to understand the language of the majority in the particular state. It is only by thus coming together that the members of the two language groups would come together and would harmoniously develop, but it was found at the time when the States Reorganization Commission had to consider this that some machinery should be devised for safeguarding the rights of linguistic minorities only, and after full consideration what was conceded was that only in respect of linguistic minorities certain rights should be extended and certain rights should be safeguarded, and an officer should be appointed by the president for making a report on the question whether these rights of the linguistic minorities are or are not properly safeguarded. Coming to the internal affairs of the country, Madam Deputy Chairman, the policies of the Government of India for the last 15 years have been so manipulated that the rich people are becoming richer and the poorer sections of the people are becoming still poorer. The committee that has been appointed to investigate into the question of the distribution of income has not yet given its verdict, but it is common knowledge that the people who are in the higher ups have become more rich and the people in the lower rung have become poorer. The prices of essential commodities that the peasants and the workers use have gone up so high that they are not within the reach of the mass of the people of the country. Government have not taken adequate steps to bring down the prices and to stabilize the prices as was recommended by the Food Grains Committee. We are now in the third plan. While the plans are progressing, the number of unemployed in the country is increasing. There is a very anomalous position. It is the government alone that can explain why, in spite of the plans, the unemployment problem is becoming more and more acute. As was rightly pointed out yesterday by some speakers, our agriculture has not been paid due attention that should have been paid to in a country where 80% of the people live on land. Some 3 or 4 years back, when Mr. Ajit Prasad Jain was the Food and Agriculture Minister, he was made to resign under shady circumstances as one who had proved not capable of solving the food problems in the country. A suggestion was thrown that the portfolio of agriculture should be handled by an important and senior member of the cabinet, and particularly in the states by the chief ministers of the states. But nothing of the sort has happened. Whatever increase in food grains output we have obtained is not because of any increase in the yield per acre, but because of extensive cultivation. More land has been brought under cultivation and some irrigation facilities have now been provided. But the increase that we have seen is not in keeping with the demand that is necessary for us to feed 400 millions in India. So whatever industrial development we want, the basic factor is that our agricultural economy should be improved. For that, all efforts should be made, more fertilizers should be used, and new methods of cultivation should be employed for growing more food crops and for growing other cash crops. In a review that was published by the Planning Commission itself, that they have pointed out that there is acute shortage of power in more than 50% of the states in India. We have accepted a planned economy. We have completed 2 plans and we are now in the 3rd plan. I do not know why the Planning Commission of the planners concerned did not foresee this shortage of power in most of the states in India, and why they did not plan generation of more power so that people will not accuse the state governments or the Planning Commission that they did not work out the plans properly in order to have more industries and to have more food grains produced through lift irrigation. In most of the states in Andhra, in West Bengal, in Bihar, in Karnataka, there is power shortage. Whatever power is available now is being rationed. There are thousands of units of small-scale industries which are not working for want of power.